Story 1, The Trees That Shift at Night. I learned the forest moved by accident. I'd been snowshoeing the same trail for years, a loop that cut through old pines and came back out near the river. In winter, the place felt preserved, locked in place by cold. Trees didn't grow. Rocks didn't move. Everything stayed where it was supposed to be. That's what I believed, until the night I stayed too long. The sun dropped faster than I expected, bleeding orange through the trunks before vanishing entirely. Snow muffled the world, swallowing sound. My headlamp clicked on, carving a narrow tunnel through the dark. The trail was familiar. Or at least it should have been. 10 minutes in, I noticed the first wrong thing. The leaning pine near the switchback was gone. I stopped, heart thudding, and swept my light around. The tree hadn't fallen. It wasn't snapped or buried. It simply wasn't there. In its place stood two thinner trunks I didn't recognize. I laughed nervously. Wrong turn, I muttered. I turned back the way I came. After 5 minutes, I should have hit the creek crossing. I didn't. Instead, the trail narrowed, snow deeper, trees crowding closer like ribs closing around a chest. My breath sounded loud in my ears, too loud for a place this quiet. That's when I heard it. A slow, wooden creak, followed by a heavy settling sound. I froze. To my left, a pine tree shifted. Not swaying. Not bending. Sliding. Its roots dragged through frozen earth with a wet, grinding sound, repositioning itself by inches, then stopping. I stared, mouth dry. Another creak sounded behind me. Then another. All around, trees were moving, subtle and deliberate, like animals adjusting their weight. The forest wasn't alive in the way people imagine. It was arranging itself. I backed away, heart racing, and nearly tripped over a root that hadn't been there moments ago. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, okay." The headlamp flickered. In that brief dimness, something tall moved between the trunks, too smooth, too fast. When the light steadied, it was gone. I started walking faster. Snowshoes thudded softly. My breath fogged thick. The trail forked. It had never forked before. Both paths looked equally worn, equally wrong. A sound drifted through the trees, footsteps crunching snow, perfectly matching my pace. I stopped. They stopped. I turned slowly, sweeping the light behind me. Between the trunks stood a figure made of bark and shadow, limbs long and jointed wrong, its face a rough suggestion carved into wood. Snow clung to its shoulders like decoration. It tilted its head. Then it stepped sideways, and became a tree. My stomach dropped. I backed away, whispering, "Nope." The forest responded. Branches bent inward. Trunks slid closer, paths closing like a throat tightening. The sound of wood grinding against wood filled the air. The footsteps returned, multiple now, circling. I ran. Snowshoes caught roots that hadn't existed seconds earlier. I stumbled, fell, tore a glove on ice. Cold bit into my fingers immediately. The headlamp flickered again, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. I lay still, breath shallow, listening. The forest moved closer, closer, then stopped. Something leaned near my ear, its voice dry as dead leaves. "You walked where you weren't counted." I squeezed my eyes shut. The cold deepened, pressing against me like weight. Snow began to fall harder, filling in my tracks, erasing me. Then, without warning, the pressure eased. A gust of wind tore through the trees, snapping branches, shifting shadows. I scrambled up and ran blind, arms outstretched. I burst into open space, slammed into a snowbank, and collapsed onto a plowed road. Headlights blinded me. A truck skidded to a stop. Someone shouted. When I looked back, the forest stood perfectly still. Ordinary. Silent. No moving trees. No shifting paths. Just snow, and darkness, and nothing waiting. I never went back. But sometimes, on winter nights, when the wind creaks just right, I swear I can hear trees adjusting their stance. Counting. Story 2, The Fire That Calls You Deeper. We weren't lost when we saw the fire. That's important. We knew exactly where we were, 3 miles from the trailhead, following a marked winter route through dense forest. The plan was simple: hike in, camp overnight, hike out in the morning. Easy. The fire appeared between the trees just after dusk. A warm orange flicker, low and steady, deep in the woods where no campsite was marked. "That's weird," Mark said. "Someone else out here?" I frowned. "There aren't supposed to be." The air was bitter cold, the kind that chews through layers. The thought of another fire, another heat source, was tempting. Too tempting. We followed it. The fire never got closer. No matter how long we walked, it stayed the same distance away, flickering gently between trunks like it was guiding us. "This doesn't feel right," Jess said quietly. We stopped. The forest felt wrong. Too quiet. Snow fell without sound. Even our breathing seemed muted. "Let's go back," I said. Behind us, the trail was gone. Not covered, gone. Trees stood where it should have been, snow untouched. The fire flared brighter. A voice drifted from its direction, soft and friendly. "You're almost there." Mark took a step before I grabbed his arm. "No." The voice chuckled. "Cold makes people stubborn." Branches snapped behind us. Shadows moved. The fire finally came into full view, a perfect circle of flame burning directly on snow, no pit, no smoke. Around it stood figures, faces hidden beneath hoods, unmoving. They didn't radiate heat. They absorbed it. "Sit," the voice said. "Warm yourselves." Jess whispered, "They're not breathing." One figure lifted its head. Its hood fell back to reveal a face pale and smooth, like skin stretched over ice. "You brought warmth with you," it said. We smelled it. The fire surged. Heat washed over us in a wave so strong it made me dizzy. I realized then, the fire wasn't wood. It was loss. Every step closer fed it. "Run," I said. The figures moved instantly, gliding rather than walking. Trees bent aside for them. We ran blind through the forest, branches tearing at us, snow swallowing sound. The fire's glow followed, always behind, never fading. Jess tripped. Mark hauled her up. The fire screamed. Not angry, hungry. At the last second, we burst onto the frozen river, ice gleaming under moonlight. The fire stopped at the tree lean, flickering violently, unable to cross. The figures watched, waiting. At dawn, the forest looked normal again. No fire. No figures. But our packs were lighter. Our extra fuel was gone. And my hands still smelled like smoke. Story 3, Something Walks Between the Pines. The ranger station warned us. "Don't leave the trail after dark," the woman said. "If you hear footsteps matching yours, stop." I laughed it off. "Animals?" She didn't smile. "Something older." We camped anyway. That night, the forest breathed. Wind slid through the pines in long, slow exhales. Snow drifted down, soft and endless. The fire crackled low. That's when the footsteps began. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Perfectly in sync with mine as I paced the campsite. I stopped. They stopped. The silence pressed in. From between the trees, something tall stepped forward. It wore the forest like a disguise, branches woven into limbs, snow clinging to its back. Its face was a hollow knot in the bark, deep and watching. It tilted its head, and took a step that mirrored mine. "You don't belong to winter," it said. The cold deepened instantly. I backed toward the fire. It hissed, shrinking. The thing smiled, and the forest leaned closer. I understood then. Winter doesn't kill you. It waits until the forest decides you're ready. And sometimes, it follows you home. Story 4, The Trail That Breathes After Midnight. The forest looks honest during the day. Snow weighs down the branches, sunlight filters through in clean lines, and the trail feels permanent, etched into the land by boots and time. It tells you where to walk. It promises it will still be there when you come back. At night, that promise changes. I learned that on a solo winter hike I never should have taken. The plan was simple. Hike in before sunset, set camp near the ridge, sleep, and hike out in the morning. I'd done it before. The trail was marked. Familiar. Safe. That word means nothing in winter. By the time I reached the ridge, dusk had already started bleeding into night. Snow fell lightly, steady enough to erase sharp edges but not enough to panic me. I pitched my tent, lit a small fire, and ate in silence. The forest felt close. Not threatening, just attentive. Like it was listening. Around 10 p.m., I decided to take a short walk to stretch my legs. I followed the trail with my headlamp on low, boots crunching softly. 10 minutes out. 10 minutes back. That's all. The trail dipped between pines so thick they swallowed sound. My breathing sounded too loud. I turned around to head back. And the trail behind me was gone. Not covered. Not drifted over. Gone. Trees stood where the path had been, snow untouched between their roots. I turned in a slow circle, heart picking up speed. "No," I muttered. "That's not possible." I stepped forward, retracing my path by instinct. After a few paces, the trail appeared again beneath my feet, exactly where it should be. I let out a shaky breath and laughed. Okay. I turned back toward camp. After 5 minutes, I should have seen my firelight through the trees. I didn't. I walked faster. Then stopped. The sound of crunching snow continued. One extra step. Then another. I wasn't alone anymore. "Hello?" I called, hating how small my voice sounded. The footsteps stopped when I did. I waited. Snow fell softly. My breath fogged the air. Then something answered, not a voice, but a sound. A slow, deep exhale that didn't come from lungs. The trees shifted. Not swaying. Not bending. Leaning. Subtle at first, then more. Trunks angled inward, branches creaking under fresh tension. The trail narrowed like it was being gently squeezed. I backed away. The ground beneath my boots felt warmer. I looked down. The snow on the trail was thinning, melting in long, uneven patches, revealing dark soil beneath. Steam curled up in thin wisps. The forest was breathing. In, out. The footsteps returned, closer now. They didn't crunch the snow. They pressed it flat. I swept my headlamp around, pulse roaring in my ears. Between two pines stood a shape taller than any man. Its body was a rough column of bark and shadow, limbs folding where no joints should exist. Snow clung to it, not melting, just hanging there like decoration. Its face wasn't a face. It was an opening, deep and hollow, shaped vaguely like a mouth. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere at once. "You stayed past the count." My throat tightened. "I'm leaving." The thing tilted its head. "The trail decides that," it said. Behind me, the forest exhaled harder. The trail stretched, lengthening like a pulled muscle. The trees on either side leaned closer, their roots creaking beneath the snow. I ran. The ground shifted under my feet. Roots surfaced where none had been, catching my boots, slowing me down. The headlamp flickered. In the brief dimness, more shapes appeared between the trees, tall, still, watching. They weren't chasing. They were waiting. I tripped and went down hard, snow exploding around me. My pack dug into my ribs. Cold bit instantly through my gloves. The headlamp died. Darkness swallowed the world. I lay there, afraid to move, afraid not to. Something stepped closer. I felt the weight of it in the ground, pressure radiating through frozen earth. It crouched beside me. The air grew warmer, heavy, thick. "You carry heat," the thing murmured. Fire. Breath. Memory. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Leave it," it said gently. "And the trail will return you." I understood then. It didn't want my body. It wanted what proved I belonged somewhere else. I unshouldered my pack with numb fingers and slid it forward. The thing didn't touch it. The snow around the pack melted on its own, sinking into dark soil. The forest inhaled. The pressure lifted. Cold rushed back in. When I opened my eyes, faint firelight flickered ahead through the trees. My camp. The trail beneath me was solid again. I scrambled to my feet and ran, not stopping until I crashed into my campsite, breath tearing out of me in ragged gasps. The fire burned low. My tent stood untouched. Behind me, the forest stood perfectly still. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I packed what little I had left and left without breakfast. The trail behaved itself in daylight, wide and honest and harmless. When I reached the trailhead, my legs finally gave out. I sat in the snow, shaking. That's when I noticed something wrong. My pack felt lighter than it should have. At home, I emptied it. My spare gloves were gone. My extra socks. My fire starter. Anything that held warmth. That night, I dreamed of the forest breathing, slow and deep, waiting for the next count to be missed. And sometimes, when winter settles heavy and quiet outside my window, I swear I can feel the ground exhale. Like a trail remembering my footsteps.